100 years ago today, the unsinkable Titanic sank. The ship went down in the frigid waters of the North Atlantic after hitting an iceberg, taking 1,517 people to their deaths and leaving the world shocked. People from all over the world this weekend are engaging in a centennial memorial to this event that continues to capture our attention. 100 years later, it continues to capture our imagination. Why this fascination after all these years? Well, I think there's something to the fact that the scale of the disaster itself deserves some sort of attention. That might have something to do with it. Perhaps it also has something to do with the clash of the classes that were on that ship that day. As the movies have captured so graphically, the poor down in the lowest portion of the ship, and above them, incredible opulence. But perhaps the most compelling reason is that the story of the sinking of the Titanic is a morality play. And it continues to be a morality play about what happens when human beings buy into their own hype. If the Titanic teaches anything, it is that we are all of us, seriously sinkable. This Titanic disaster happened because too many believed that humanity could conquer any challenge of nature with technology. The captain commented that it is the nature of modern shipbuilding in the early 20th century that sinking is now a near impossibility. In his own words, "I cannot imagine any condition which would cause this ship to founder." Modern shipbuilding, he said, has gone beyond that. I have to wonder if the captain remembered those words as he stood on the ship's deck watching the last lifeboat float away, knowing that he was going down with his ship. This whole Titanic story is full of hubris. It's full of hubris based on the idea that such a large, such an imposing, such a modern ship could not possibly suffer a disaster at sea. The upshot? The Titanic was really sunk by this human tendency we have in our hubris to ignore other people's perspectives, to buy into our own hype, and to live our lives with exaggerated pride and exaggerated self-confidence. Hubris led to the sinking of the Titanic. Hubris said that they didn't need to pay attention to the design flaws that were in that ship from its very beginning, that they could cut corners, they could ignore those who advised them otherwise. And like the designers of the Titanic, if we, you and I, are not paying attention to the major design flaws in our own lives, our own design flaws, then we need to now. Because we all have a tendency to charge ahead, whether we know what we're doing or not, to charge ahead deeper into the darkness of life, separate from God, figuring it out on our own, demanding so much, all the while believing we will be quite well, thank you, on our own. That's part of what happened that night. They could have slowed down. Before that mighty ship hit that iceberg, they could have slowed down. They had received several transmissions from other ships that were in the area that there were ice floes all over the place. Yet in her hubris, she continued to speed ahead full throttle, not listening to others, being too sure, way too sure. If we're going to avoid the sinking effects of our own bravado, it's going to begin by us slowing down a little bit and being really honest with ourselves and listen to people and what they're telling us. We need to get real about what's wrong with us. Truth be told, we could be headed for a crash of epic proportions. And it's better to know the problems, own the problems, before we leave port. There's a spirit of truth out there, the author of the second reading tells us. There's a spirit of truth out there, and it's bigger than we are and bigger than our minds, well beyond our mental abilities to capture on our own. And if we're going to make it to the other side, we're going to have to begin by being humble enough to be open, to listen to those who have different perspectives than we have on life and on the world. Had the Titanic's company and creators been just a little more honest about her flaws, they might have made it to the other side. So can we. Hubris led to the sinking of the Titanic. It's a modern Babel story, isn't it? The builders boldly imagining that they could construct an ocean liner so large that not even the ordinary limitations of a maritime world would apply. That's hubris. They were so confident, so proud, so full of their own bravado, that they only had 20 lifeboats on the Titanic, not even enough for barely half of the passengers. Not me, not us, not this ship. They thought they were so right, and they were so wrong. Enter Thomas, the apostle. You can see it in him. He had sort of this intellectual hubris, you know. Here's the engineer. Here's the scientist. Here's the practical and the concrete. Here's the rational and the scientific who needs evidence, who can't believe without seeing it or hearing it or smelling it or touching it or tasting it. That somehow for them the only thing real are those things. I run into it all the time on campus. I'm guilty of it myself. So there comes to be this sort of hubris. Not me. Not us. Faith is for fools. You're all duped. And if you might think they mince words over there when I'm around because I'm a priest, those are the exact words I hear again and again. Not me, I won't believe until you can prove it to me. Prove it, then I'll believe it. There's only this material, this rational universe, nothing more, certainly no God. And you can almost see Thomas, can't you, with his hands on his hips, harumphing, give me proof. Prove it. And how does Jesus respond? Blessed are those who don't need proof, Thomas. Blessed are those who don't need proof and can still trust that it's true. Neither you nor I can ever prove to anybody we love them. On any given day, the evidence from my behavior could be that, as a matter of fact, I don't love you. I can't even prove it to you that I love you, ever. But you can trust it. In spite of what you see or hear, smell or taste or touch coming from me as evidence on any given day, you can trust it. That's true faith. It's hubris to demand proof. In this morality play called the Titanic that continues to fascinate the human family, as we celebrate today and remember the sinking of that great ship and the deaths of 1,517 human beings, all because some were so sure. Is it not time, is it not a great opportunity to reevaluate what we think we are so sure about, what we fight about all the time? Is it not time to be just a little more humble and a little more open-minded and a little less arrogant and stand gently in this world with a desire to learn from everybody, even those we disagree with the most, truly listening to others' perspectives. A couple weeks ago, I had a visceral experience of this when somebody asked me if I'd like to chat with a doctor who does abortions. And at first I said, gosh, I don't think that's going to get anywhere. And then I thought, it's going to be really hard. And then I thought, you know what, this could be really good for me. And for 3 hours I listened. It was hard for me. It took every bit of skill I had to listen to another, very other. But I can't tell you that I haven't stopped thinking about it since. If we just slow down a little bit, you know, slow down and listen, and trust in what cannot be proved, ever proved. Human hubris. It was just the tip of the iceberg. No, that's almost the whole iceberg in the sinking of the Titanic. My friends, hubris sinks human beings' lives.